That's because you're prepared, Annalee.
Yeah, all you can see is this part, though. So.
But you only need to be prepared that much.
Hey, but
Yeah, exactly.
That's TV. That's how it works.
I know.
All right. We are streaming. We are good.
All right,
By the way, also recommend Hip Hop Evolution on Netflix, the 4-part
I started
series.
watching that. I was 30 minutes in. Does it get better?
It's good. It's good. I have to watch the 3rd episode again because I ended up crashing on the couch. But that was the good one because they brought in Run DMC and they brought in. It was just like the pinnacle of hip hop at that point.
Gotcha.
So I was excited to see it.
As long as they get Kwame in there.
No, I don't think Kwame's in there. But I did get introduced to Pig Meat Markham.
All right, we are ready for the show. Everybody ready?
Yep.
Here we go.
Daily Tech News Show is powered by its audience, not outside organizations. To find out more, head to dailytechnewsshow.com/support.
This is the Daily Tech News for Friday, December 9th, 2016. I'm Tom Merritt. Joining me, Justin Robert Young. He and Darren Kitchen flip-flopped this week. How's it? You're down in Florida.
I am.
Justin.
Again, I'm back in Florida, and I'm very, very excited to be here on the show. And thank you to Darren Kitchen for flipping, because my stupid friend who's getting stupid married on Stupid Saturday decided to have their stupid rehearsal during the day. Who does a daytime rehearsal?
Right.
And more important insights like that to come.
Yeah, absolutely. Thankfully, to shed light on those types of things and more, we also have Annalee Newitz, tech culture editor at Ars Technica, on the show. Welcome back, Annalee. Good to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me back on.
It's great to have you along. Last time Annalee was here, I wasn't around, so this is fantastic because I've been wanting to be on the show with her as well. And we're going to revisit your column from Monday that Veronica and I talked about in a little bit. So I'm looking forward to that too.
Yeah, me too.
Let's start off with some top stories. Michigan Governor Rick Snyder signed 4 bills into law Friday, creating the first comprehensive regulations for autonomous driving in a U.S. state. Actually, Florida has the next best. They have everything except the ability to offer a self-driving service. Now Michigan has legalized that. Vehicle manufacturers, and we'll get to that in a minute, are the only ones who will be allowed to operate on-demand networks of self-driving cars. Operators of such networks must take full liability for accidents, at least accidents in which the vehicle was in autonomous mode and it was at fault. There is some debate over who qualifies as a vehicle manufacturer. For instance, Google says the U.S. National Highway Traffic and Safety Administration recognizes it as a manufacturer of record, but a Michigan Department of Transportation spokesperson says the state sees Google as a manufacturer of automated vehicle technology, and to qualify for the new rules, they would have to become a motor vehicle manufacturer by meeting the federal motor vehicle safety standards. So right now, nobody's offering this service, but it remains to be seen who will be able to.
Well, and Michigan as a state is in a very interesting position. They obviously have largely been dependent on the auto industry for, a long time. And they want to be friendly to a future in which people can still build cars in Michigan. The question is how much they're going to want to protect their kind of oligopoly in favor of getting this entire concept off the ground, because the idea that Michigan could play a large role in the next great age of automobiles is something that I think appeals greatly to them. But right now, at least the companies that have put a lot of time and effort into building this technology are not American-made auto manufacturers.
Yeah, it's interesting. I had the same thought about Michigan being the perfect place to have this sort of start out as a concept legally. But it's true that if they want to protect their local industry, the auto industry, which is still a huge part of the economy, especially if you're in Detroit, it seems like they're trying to create what I think is a weird distinction between the people who are basically making the software that will run these cars and the manufacturers of the cars themselves, because you're never going to see a Google manufacturing cars. I mean, maybe they will eventually. I never say never.
Sure.
But I think it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Are we going to have does that mean that someone who designs an algorithm that gets used in a car is not liable in any way? It's just the people who actually build the physical car. So that's going to be a good question to tackle as we go forward.
Yeah, I think an even better example is Uber, right? Uber wants to provide its service with self-driving cars. Would it be allowed to do so? Would it be considered a manufacturer, or would it be forced to partner with a Ford or a GM in order to do that? Something it might want to do anyway, but would the law require it? And the other part is, this is just Michigan. What happens when Florida comes up with its own approval for a self-driving car service and says, well, we have different qualifications? So there are also organizations saying we need to have a federal standard that says this is the way it is across the US, rather than having a patchwork of different qualifications from state to state.
I mean,
sorry, Annalee. I think that's also a big question for like, all right, so how does everything stand now in terms of the players that want to do self-driving cars? That would mean Uber, Google, not so much, but Tesla, which does manufacture their own cars and does want to create a net of self-driving cars, or at least the ability that you can just turn your car into a self-driving car, that is closer to their definition, but they don't produce their cars in Michigan. So I wonder where they fall on Tesla. I think if we're looking at the ramifications of these restrictions.
Well, I think Tesla's a shoo-in because they, as you said, they actually are manufacturing their own cars. So, but they're kind of an outlier in this area. I mean, mostly it's technology companies that are producing software that will then be implemented in someone else's hardware, just like we see with mobile devices and things like that. So I think Tom's right that you might see partnerships where, it's Uber Ford or Uber Tesla maybe, although probably not. But that would be interesting. The other thing about state by state regulation, which is definitely what we will get first, is you're going to see states clamoring to be the place where companies that are doing this kind of software want to go to work. So you could easily see a state passing a more lax version of those laws, saying like, sure, anyone, Google can be testing their cars here. Google can be rolling out a beta version of their service, no problem. And, that way they'll get maybe a Google, local outlet of Google there, or local campus for Google. So I could easily see that happening, within the next 5 years.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Nintendo's Super Mario Run for iOS comes out December 15th, and you will need an active internet connection to play it. Nintendo's Shigeru Miyamoto told Mashable that the requirement is meant to prevent piracy. Well, Tom, at least he didn't come up with a dumb excuse for why they need to have an always-on internet connection. They came right out and said it was because we want to make sure people aren't stealing it. What do you think this will do for the popularity of what is a very interesting time for Nintendo and mobile gaming?
It's going to cause a lot of grumbling among people like us who look at this and say, hey, wait a minute. So this means I can't play it when I'm on a plane unless I pay for internet connectivity. I can't play it in the subway if my connection goes out. Most people aren't going to notice or care, honestly. It's Mario. It's going to sell great.
Yeah, I think so too. Although, we are starting to see, I hope that this is just Nintendo's first foray, and they want to be extra careful because they've obviously had a lot of consternation about moving their big IP to mobile. I hope it's something that they drop going forward, and this is just part of that delicate dance to get them into developing mobile games, because it seems when Netflix is letting you download stuff, when they have been staunchly against that, then the idea of an independent service with or without internet connection seems to be where the tide is moving en masse.
Yeah, especially with a casual game where, you're going to be moving in and out of service areas all the time. It's just this anti-piracy measure is going to end up just being like an anti-player measure. It's people just won't have fun playing it. So yeah, I agree. I hope that they chuck this idea in the garbage.
I think the bigger risks to them is not so much that you have to be online to play it, but that you will be online and the detection software that's trying to prove you're online will screw up and tell you you're not online. And that's what's really going to frustrate people. I mean, there's a lot of online play in here that you wouldn't be able to take advantage of offline anyway. And Miyamoto talked about that in this Mashable interview, said, well, we thought about making part of it offline, but then it didn't really tie in well. People play games like Hearthstone that have to be online all the time and are fine with it. I think the bigger issue, though, is that because you don't really need to be online to play every aspect of this game, it's more likely to be one of those situations where the DRM is worse than the cure, right? Like the idea that we're trying to make sure you're online, and it'll screw up a few times, and people are going to get very angry about that because they're going to be they're not going to understand why they are online and it's not working.
It's always going to be one more thing that can go wrong, which in technology is always the recipe for disaster.
Always one thing too many. Speaking of things that went wrong, Samsung pushes an update to remaining US Galaxy Note 7s on December 19th to prevent charging at all and eliminate the ability to work as a mobile device. Samsung estimates there's still 133,000 Note 7s unaccounted for in the United States. Note 7 owners can still return their phones or exchange them for other Samsung devices, but interestingly, Verizon announced it will not push this update to its customers. They said, look, we don't want to cut people off if they need emergency services or they're traveling over the holidays. Although if you're traveling in a plane, you're not carrying a Note 7, please. But they're not going to push it. They're going to say, we're going to hold off on this. And in Europe, an update on December 15th will just reduce Note 7's chargeability to 30%. It won't cut it off. However, in Canada, Note 7s will have all wireless network functions disabled. So you can charge it, but you won't be able to use it. So they're taking different approaches in different markets to try to encourage people to hand these things back in.
Where does this rank historically on like the biggest technology failures of all time?
Well, I think it's top 5.
Right?
Sure. Because it failed twice. If it had just been that first battery recall, it wasn't a big deal. But having to just pull the entire product, right?
And now that these are the stories, when these are the aftermath stories, the like, will a carrier push an app to kill and brick a phone deliberately? Like, that means something horrifying has gone wrong on a scale for which, even in this overreacting, pearl-clutching technology press industry, like, we have to understand that this is indeed beyond the pale.
Well, I mean, things are catching on fire. I mean, it doesn't get much more literal than that.
No, literally catching on fire. Right?
It's like, yeah, I mean, it is very extreme. We've rarely had, we've had a few battery fire situations in the past, but usually not quite this bad. And usually not with stuff that people are carrying around with them all the time.
Yeah,
So,
the worst one that I could think of is the Sony Vios, but those weren't as widespread. And while they were banned from planes and there were people who carried them on planes, it wasn't as ubiquitous as a smartphone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, this one's hard. The information reports Magic Leap's augmented reality technology is indeed years away from completion. Information also alleges that much of the project demo released last year was misleading. One of the videos was supposedly created by the Weta Workshop visual effects studio. Magic Leap promises to build its AR into everyday glasses, but is having trouble making its fiber scanning displays work. Magic Leap, if you have been following this company, has raised $1.4 billion in funding at a $4.5 billion valuation. Alibaba, Google, and Andreessen Horowitz are among the investors. On Twitter, Magic Leap CEO Ronnie Abovitz said everyone will get to test everything when it ships, claimed the company is making mini production tests of its first system, and told everyone to stay tuned and believe.
This is a long time coming. I mean, when that video that they did, that teaser video last year, was obviously not real. Like, it looked great, and it definitely looked like it was made at Weta, but it was clearly fake. And they kept sort of making these wishy-washy comments like, well, it's an enhanced version, or this is this is what it will look like from the point of view of the player when it's done. And then, every time they would have some kind of press event, they would invite a bunch of press and they'd say, oh, sorry, we forgot. We can't do that press event. That'll be happening later. Just believe. And we finally got some pictures. I don't know if you guys saw these, that are supposedly of the rig that you need. And it looks like one of those things that you put your head into at the optometrist, where you stick your face on and they blow air into your eyes and stuff. And it was like, that seems big. That seems awkward.
I have been very skeptical of Magic Leap for the years that it has been in the rumor mill. But the one thing I was willing to give it is, well, you've convinced Google, you've convinced Alibaba, there must be something there. And so when that video came out, I said, well, it does look doctored, but then so did the HoloLens first one, and the HoloLens ended up being real. So maybe this will pay off. Today's tweet storm from Ronnie Abovitz kind of is a bit of the nail in the coffin for me. I mean, basically what he said is, all you skeptics will get to try it when it ships, which is the definition of something shipping. And when something ships, everyone gets to try it. Like, you're not telling me much there. And when you finished on believe, I'm not believing anymore at this point. And I'm willing to change my mind once you actually ship it and I can try it. I will change my mind.
Yeah,
So
and the technology sounded so cool. Like, that was the thing that kept me kind of coming back and reading stories about it and following it, was because if it really is true that they can do this where they're beaming stuff into your eye and that you get this really immersive sense of basically augmented reality. There it is. There's the amazing machine. So the idea is that it's not VR, it's AR, but it's so good, you know, that it feels, you know, like you're interacting with blobs or whatever little creatures that you're shooting in the office. But I mean, I just think they bit off way more than they.
Well, let's be plain. The issue with Magic Leap is that we are covering them because we assume, by way of the social proof of them raising the funds and showing us whatever little test that they've done, that they have a fundamental technological breakthrough in AR, the likes of which we have never seen. It's not, HoloLens is the same solution that you have seen previously. It's combining a picture with another screen, and you're looking at this other like composite of it. This was supposed to be fundamentally different. I have a soft spot in my heart for that idea. They are literally based about 2 miles from where I am right now in South Florida. So I certainly kind of root for them on that level. But if this is the case, that that video was totally constructed by Weta, and those were not assets that on some kind of framework was being run through their operating system, this is fraud. And this is among one of the more bald-faced examples of it. The other thing that you have to realize with them is you can't just keep doing these fawning, totally managed, like the secret in Florida is Magic Leap kind of stories without people eventually coming for you. If you do not produce something, that is a problem. And you can only push that back so far before everyone sort of wonders whether or not the emperor just doesn't have any clothes.
Yeah. We need more Leap and less magic here. Because honestly, I think what I suspect is going on is the fiber scanning display works when it's in that refrigerator-sized unit. And they show that to investors, and investors are blown away and say, wow, that is the best looking AR possible. And when that video comes out, the people who have tried that refrigerator sized display go, yeah, that looks pretty close to what I saw. I could believe it could do that. And what it sounds like from this information story is they just aren't able to get it wearable. And that was the key, is they need to make that leap to making it wearable, and they're not able to do that, and that's why it's still dragging. So I believe that the technology is there and impressive, but it's just not practical at this point, and they don't seem to be able to figure out how to make it practical.
Well, and also, listen, if it's going to be years away, it was years away years ago. We're at now. And if it's constantly going to be years away, then it's vaporware. You've now moved from, this is a thing that will be debuting soon and we should be excited about it, to vaporware, and prove it to me when you put something out there or put something in somebody's hands.
And they've got to use all that investor money, right? Like, they can't just close up shop. So, you know, it's gonna be in the future until either there's no more money, or they actually put out some glasses that work. So
how about things that do work? Facebook is now letting users create frames, graphic overlays for photos and videos representing places and events, among other things. Probably reminds you of Snapchat geofilters, because it's pretty much like Snapchat geofilters. You can find the instructions if you want to create a Facebook frame at facebook.com/FBCameraEffects.
So why isn't this an Instagram thing?
Because Instagram already copied Snapchat, so why don't they
to divvy up the copying?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. We wouldn't want to do it all in one place.
I mean,
yeah, I don't know.
let me. So I'm down here for a wedding, as I mentioned earlier. I decided to, as a nice thing, to make a Snapchat geofilter for their wedding tomorrow. So very, very simple. I was actually kind of very impressed with how Snapchat has made it super, super easy to do. It's very affordable. It's going to be for 10 hours tomorrow in this the whole area where they're going to have the wedding. It was super fun and easy to do, and hopefully people enjoy it and it actually works. I think this is a good idea. However, you got to wonder why they're pushing it for Facebook camera when that doesn't seem like the biggest place that they could just, even if you're going to bald face rip off this Snapchat feature, like put it in a place where people would actually use it or want to use it.
Yeah, I mean, well, don't forget Instagram and Facebook are different teams. They're even different companies under the same company. So it may be that Instagram is looking at this going, yeah, we have something like that too, damn it. It could also be that Facebook says, hey, you know where people really check in often is Facebook. They don't do that kind of geographic locale-based stuff on Instagram as much. And that's why the Facebook team got to this first. I don't know.
I mean, this is part of just their general push for making Facebook more fun on mobile. I mean, everyone's accessing it on mobile anyway. This is, Facebook Live is their, big push, which is still, I think the jury is out on whether that push is going to result in anything real or lasting. But that's what this feels like to me, is just like more fun stuff you can do with your friends, like on mobile Facebook. And like, maybe they just don't feel like Instagram needs that, because Instagram is entirely mobile. You would never do that anywhere but on your phone.
Yeah.
Indeed. Researchers at the University of Toronto fed a neural network hundreds of hours of Tom, could you actually move off the thing, because your thing is blocking, but there we go. Hundreds of hours of music until it could create listenable compositions with melody, instruments, and drums. Then the neural karaoke program was trained on a collection of pictures and captions to learn how words link to visual patterns and objects to create lyrics about the pictures. The network was then shown a picture of a Christmas tree. It wrote a song about it, which it then performed. Side note, the same program can also make a stick figure dance to music. I think we're going to throw to this brand new Christmas classic right now.
Christmas present in the world is a blessing.
The best Christmas present in the world is a blessing.
You can't argue with that.
Another one.
I always decorate my Christmas tree with flowers. I don't know why people are taking issue with that. With this AI.
I'm glad that robots are expressing their feelings about how to decorate Christmas trees. I mean, this is where brotherhood between humans and robots begins.
Yeah, it starts at a time of good feelings and good cheer. And I don't want to diss this song. I do think that the one put out by the Sony bot in September, which was fed Beatles tunes, is a little catchier. But maybe that's just because, this is a traditional time, and so you can't be too poppy.
Well, let's also face it. Most Christmas songs are not necessarily great songs. They are great songs that you like to hear in a month-long period. This is fun. This is just a fun, silly thing. If it can get anywhere near an approximation and we can all laugh about it and relate on some level, then I think it's done its job. And here's the big headline. Now the war on Christmas has recruited Skynet. So get at us.
There are lots and lots and lots and lots of flowers.
I mean, I love that sentiment.
It's great.
I'm pro robot Christmas.
I'm pro robot Christmas with lots of flowers. Who wouldn't be? You'd have to be dead inside. Or an algorithm. Hey, thanks to all those who participate in our subreddit, submit stories, and vote on them at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. Real quick, before we get into our main discussion, don't forget Len Peralta is here illustrating the show. He's illustrating our main discussion topic today, which is, the fact that there is if arguably no difference between your online and offline life. You thought not having Darren here, Len, would mean that you could get away from conceptual topics that you had to illustrate, huh?
No, I love the challenge. So bring it on.
Yeah.
They're good to be here, too, by the way.
We will check in with Len again at the end of the show. Let's start off just to remind people or people who didn't hear the Monday show. We talked about Annalee's op-ed piece on Ars Technica about the fact that, hey, if you're talking about your offline life versus your online life, you're talking about a distinction that doesn't necessarily exist anymore. And you give lots of good examples in your column about that. Internet of Things, the fact that we live online, we pay our bills online, we communicate online, and so is there really any difference between being online and being offline anymore? And we got some great emails. I picked a couple to talk about here today. L. Mike Verdusco, PhD, wrote in and said he enjoyed that conversation regarding real and digital life, but a quick comment on the conversation regarding people's in real life actions and those online. I think you need to consider the goal or intention of people's actions. We do not proclaim our political beliefs or other opinions in public spaces because that's not our goal of being in a public space. We're shopping or socializing with friends or other day-to-day actions and not likely to make public proclamations as often as we do online. When we engage on social media or the internet in general, we have different intentions. The internet in many ways has become the public forum of times gone by. It is the space for exchanging public opinions where equivalent action, public declaration, would cause more than just a few odd stares in the middle of a mall or a restaurant. So Annalee, he's basically saying, well, you wouldn't get up in the middle of Chili's and start shouting about your presidential candidate, but that's okay online because we expect that.
I mean, I think that that's a really narrow definition of what online means. And I think part of what I was getting at in this piece is that what we think of as the online world, which is totally connected to the offline world or real life world, it's an incredibly diverse place. And so there's plenty of places you might go online where it would be just as ridiculous for you to suddenly stand up and start talking about party politics or start talking about abortion. You know, you wouldn't go to a Harry Potter fan forum and talk about that because people would kind of get pissed off unless it was like an impreg story or something and it was somehow relevant to abortion. But let's not go there. But
but there is such a thing as off topic, right? When you're in, I've been in conversations like, hold on, we're getting off topic.
Very much. And I mean, in fact, the idea of off topic is something that I think all of us have treasured to use in moderating conversations online to tell people like, look, this isn't really the place to talk about that. And so I think that just like in, our real life meat space world, there's certain places where, of course, you're not going to have a political conversation. But the fact is, I've had tons of political conversations walking through malls and while shopping. And I think that, these kinds of conversations are constantly going on in both places. And so I think, has the internet taken over some kind of public space that used to exist in the real world? I mean, to a certain extent, yeah. But to a certain extent, we have those public spaces in both. I mean, we have town hall meetings, we have, city council meetings that people go to all the time and talk in person. So I think, again, I feel like this just underscores the fact that, really there is this huge connection between how we behave online and in real life. And that there's just such a variety of things that we can talk about in so many different kinds of spaces on the internet that you can't just say like, well, this is why all of us go online. It's like, everybody most people go online for different reasons. So.
Oh, absolutely. The one thing that I do think is part of online culture, and specifically, I think what we're drilling down to is primarily text-based culture, be it Twitter, Facebook, blogs, there is a little bit more of an initial tolerance for tribe signaling. Like just sending up flares that other people that either are going to react to you because they are not of your tribe, or you want to find other people of like minds, either through searching out your own entertainment or through making comments yourself to ingratiate yourself with people that you have never met before and you are now communicating with via text, which we all know is where all inflection and sarcasm go to die.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I think that does have to be a little louder. And I think it has a tendency to get a little louder than it might be in a meet space where you just have other ways to signal to people based on how you look, how you dress, where you live, right? Whether you're rich or you're poor, or you're fat or you're skinny. There's a million different, what your gender is. There's a million different ways that we signal each other without talking, and that is absent by, primarily on text-based mediums online. So I do think that there is a little bit more of a culture of that. But what I think your point largely was that we need to figure out that the consequences transfer almost without friction, more so than they ever have in the past. And that is part of a maturation and a saturation of how much we all rely on some kind of text-based online communication.
Yeah, and I mean, I think your point about how people behave when they meet in person is really astute about the fact that we have many nonverbal signals that we can send that we can't send if we're just in text online, which I would say that this text-only world also is going away, and we may finally kind of get away from a text-only social space, but that's a whole other conversation. But I think that the other thing is that because in the real world you do get all this nonverbal signaling, the consequences of what you're saying are immediately obvious. So if you say something to someone and they're offended, you see it in their body language, you can see it in them cringing, and many studies have shown that it's much harder for people to criticize each other to each other's faces because of that. It's hard to tell someone, I disagree with your ideas, the cake that you made sucks. Like, you just can't do that to someone's face because you see them respond, and you can't help as a human being but sympathize with that response. It's just part of our biology. And so when you do kind of drain away that immediate nonverbal response, it is easier to say things that you would never say, because you wouldn't say in person, so you don't understand the immediate consequences of what you've said. However, online, those consequences still erupt into the real world all the time. The story that was in the Washington Post today about the woman that Trump tweeted about a year ago. She's a college student who asked him a question at a town hall meeting, and he didn't like the question. And so later he tweeted about how she was a terrible, arrogant person. She has been she's been trolled now for an entire year, both in person and online, just from one tweet. And that's a huge amount of consequences for just one little off-the-cuff tweet. And of course, Trump is the easy example because he's got so many followers, but this happens to lots of people on a smaller scale all the time.
I think the way I'm tempted to frame it now, and this is based on your very salient point that, online and offline, there's not a separation of consequences. It's not like the news group days where nobody knew you were a dog on the internet, right?
Yeah.
I think it's that we've always had nonverbal, communication, non-present communication, but it took longer. We had to write a letter. We had to sit down. We had to think a little longer about it. We had to hold a pen in our hand, or at least a typewriter. And then you were sending it to somebody. Maybe it was a letter to the editor. Otherwise, you wouldn't really know who to send it to. But we've accelerated the ability to do that non-present communication tremendously. And we've created the ability to access millions of people at once. And I think that we're dealing with the fallout of that, where if we could have all written letters at that rate and to that many people, we would have seen this problem before. What you guys have been talking about, that inability to be present makes you communicate in a way that you wouldn't have before. But we also have lost the anonymity of a letter writer or an early internet user, and it's easier to find people.
It's incredibly easy to find people. And I think one thing I do want to retain in this conversation, though, is the fact that one of the valuable things about communicating online is that there still are ways to communicate anonymously online, and that's incredibly important. And we don't want to get rid of that. And that doesn't mean getting rid of the consequences of what we say, but we do need to keep protecting that little piece of the internet that allows us to communicate anonymously.
And maybe learn when to choose to communicate anonymously and when not to. I think a lot of people forget when they're on Facebook or Twitter how many other people can see what they write.
Well,
yeah, that's so true.
I think, and that's something that is rapidly evolving. And part of what I think I really liked about your piece, Annalee, was that this is, I don't think that this is necessarily a sign of the coming apocalypse. Like, I think
good.
It is. I think that it is now, and that's where I think oftentimes when we get into these conversations, it can just get into this weird technophobic, like, and this is why we've unleashed our true demons on the world, where this is a very awkward phase that we are going through, because even in the idea of online communication, totally ubiquitous, all strata of age and occupation and class being on social media, you were able to silo yourself a little bit. You would read the blogs that you read, and that would be that. Now everything collides at such a fast a degree that now not only do you know your 4 favorite writers in your own little social political strata, but you know your 5 least favorite writers from exactly the opposite demographic, because their stuff gets retweeted into your circle and into your feed just as much as anything else. And we are, I think, feeling the consequences of that in the real world, that we are just getting a lot of this culture clash at a faster degree than we ever have before. And I think ultimately the poison is the antidote. The more we see of each other, the tendency will be that the more we understand our differences. But right now we are just in a really dizzying time, I think, where we were not only realizing how far we were apart, but how uncomfortable it is for us to kind of be together in this kind of situation, especially with, it's hard to look at it in any other lens than the presidential election, because that was obviously something that was, you know, very painful for every strata of it at various different times, you know, and we all have to live with everybody else's and their opinions, you know, and it's hard.
Yeah, I think the thing that concerns me most, and I agree that I don't think we're going to have a social media apocalypse, but I do worry. There's 2 things I worry about. One is that people do continue to have this myth of online being completely separate from real life. And I got a lot of people responding to my articles saying, well, my online identity is totally separate from my real life identity. It's a different name. You know, I never do anything the same in real life as I do online. And therefore, you know, everything that happens online has no consequences in the real world. And it's like, my feeling is like, hats off to you if you have a completely anonymous online identity that's totally separate from your real life. That's great. That's fine. I'm happy for you to do that. But that doesn't mean that that's how everyone experiences the internet. For a lot of people, it really is their social sphere. It's where they go to work. I've spent like the last 10 years basically working online with people, meeting them in Slack more recently, but before that, you know, IRC and various other things. So that I couldn't just go offline. It wasn't like it was a fantasy world where little elves lived. It was like the real world where my colleagues lived, and it's how I made money. And it was a very, you know, it wasn't like I could be like, okay, I'm just going to go offline for the week and like be in the real world, because that's, you know, it was the real world and it is the real world. But the other thing that worries me is that, like, what if in this awkward adolescence that you're describing, where we're kind of going through a phase where we're figuring out how to act on the internet, what if instead of taking the semi-politeness that we use with each other in the real world and finally transplanting it to the online world, what if we go the other way? And what if people start saying, all right, I really like the way trolling works online. Why don't we start doing this in real life, like, as much as possible? So I worry sometimes that the lack of civility and the lack of care for consequences will kind of erupt into the real world in a much more extreme way than it has already. So I don't know. That's my dystopian musing for the day.
What I would like to believe about that is our natural tendencies to want to be polite and avoid confrontation with people in person will eventually override that. But yeah, it may cause a lot of people to try that out. And we've never had an experiment like this where this many people could spread these kinds of ideas this fast. So it's something to think about. It also, just as a side note, it makes me, in light of the conversation we had earlier this week about the community that's putting together vanilla WoW servers so they can play the original version of World of Warcraft, I want vanilla internet servers. So I could go back to like Gopher and Archie days and just experience the vanilla internet. But real quickly, before we wrap this up, I want to get to Mike in warm and sunny Melbourne. I think has a really good point. He says, I've been saying for years that this is a false dichotomy, online versus real world. He says, maybe it's more obvious to me because I have depression and I don't cope all that well with in-person interaction. So I avoid it if I can. But 95% of my communication with the world is through the internet in some form. Am I not really communicating? Is all of the communication imaginary? If not, then what is it? It's real. It's real life. And he says, when the phone first came around, maybe people didn't see that as real life. It's a similar concept, even if it's not as public.
I think that it absolutely is real life. And I understand that we are kind of preaching to the choir doing a tech podcast, and Annalee having, written on all the platforms that you have, which is obviously allows for just at least a baseline of technological believability buy-in, right? But it is important to understand that this is new to a lot of people. Like the idea of what I post online can affect my real world might be an old lesson for us, but it is not for many, 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 many people. And there will be many, 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 many to come that will have to understand that. And it just so happens that right now we are in a very highly charged a period of time for how much we want to jump on the things that we find wrong with the world, because for many we believe that this is a very precarious moment in history, and now is the time to do it. And that's not even really a political thing, because I think that both sides believe that this is a precarious moment and they need to jump up and yell and scream and point out the hidden truth. So we'll see where it goes. But to your point, Annalee, I hope that my belief that the closer we get together, the more we understand each other, even if that conversation begins in a vile, ugly place, holds true. Because
this is a really pivotal time politically and culturally for us. And I think, people spent 2 or 3 generations getting used to the idea that the TV was not real and that was fake stuff happening on the TV that lived in your living room. And now we're having to learn the opposite thing, which is this thing that looks like a TV that you're kind of watching like a TV sometimes when you're streaming shows. No, that actually is real. And there's real people out there who can be affected by what you do. And I think that's hard because, like I said, we spent all this time learning that everything on the screen is fake. And so I think, we need to retrain ourselves.
No, that's a really good point. We laugh at the people who used to duck when the train came on to the movie screen, right? And now maybe we should duck when the train comes on the movie.
In a sense, I think so.
All right. Let's get to one email before we get out of here. Yesterday, we talked about the research allowing sepsis to be cured by attaching iron to antibodies that bind with the bacteria, and then you'd use a magnet to just pull the bacteria out of your blood and cure you of blood poisoning. And of course, I immediately said, I'm sure there's a very good reason why hemoglobin would not also get pulled out by that magnet. And I made some guesses as to why, but I asked anybody who actually knew to write in. And luckily, the senior lecturer of chemistry and director of undergraduate studies in chemistry at Emory University took the time to write in. Thank you very much, Douglas R. Mulford, PhD. Doug said, I listened to Thursday's show. You were talking about using iron to remove sepsis, which is really cool. I am not the biomedical expert you were asking for, but I'm a college chemistry teacher, so hopefully I can help. The short answer is that metallic iron, like in nails, can be attracted to a magnet, but that iron ions dissolve in solution, like in your hemoglobin, and are not attracted to the magnet. So the hemoglobin would not be attracted to the magnet in the dialysis machine. Then he adds, if you want to do a really cool iron experiment, take a flake of iron fortified cereal like Total, float it on some water, and then bring a strong neodymium magnet close, and the cereal will follow the magnet. Why? The cereal companies put metallic iron in the cereal. But that's okay because your stomach acid is strong enough to convert that metallic iron to the iron ions that you need in your body.
Now that is news you can use, baby.
Yeah. Go float some flakes, folks.
Some iron flakes for breakfast. Just cut out the middleman. Just go right for the iron flakes.
He was also excited that we had a little bit of science in with the Facebook and phones. So thank you again, Dr. Mulford, for writing in. And thank you, Annalee Newitz, for joining us. This was fantastic. It was a really good conversation. If folks want to find more of what you're doing online, where should they go?
You can always find my stuff at arstechnica.com, and my personal site is, shockingly enough, AnnaleeNewitz.com.
And there's 2 N's, but 1 L, right?
That's right.
Trying to teach myself that.
Annaleeen. And you can find me on Twitter. I'm Annalee N. ANNALEEN at Twitter. I mean, not at Twitter. You know what I mean.
Yeah, at Annalee N
at Annalee on Twitter.
Justin Robert Young, what you got going on?
Oh man, well the holidays are here, and I want to thank everybody that purchased everything from the Contender, my political card game, the game of presidential debate, natural language card game without any improv. You guys can get it for the special holiday price at thecontender.us for $17.76, and we also dropped the price on our Amazon listing as well if you want to get it via Prime. And I am here to say that after a harrowing supply chain kerfuffle that I don't want to get into, we now are flush with all products. We have all of our mailing supplies, so you will be getting stuff within 2 to 3 days if you order at thecontender.us from now until Santa makes his jolly trek.
All right, let us finish up with Len Peralta's attempt to illustrate the blending of online and offline lives. Len, what do you got?
Well, you said we'd have a conceptual sort of story today, and this is my take on it. Hopefully, people who are watching the video can see this. If you're not watching the video, please go check it out. I was thinking more about like online life and real life and things like that, and so I sort of did a dichotomy here. You got the robot online person in the real world, and the phone ringing. and the real person in the
That's your offline version calling you
in the mirror. Exactly. So anyhow, hopefully this is cool. I was trying to do something more editorial here, and hopefully people like it. I
like it. Well, you go check it out at lenperaltastore.com, even if you just want to take a look at it. But you've got this looks like you, Len. Is this you? Or?
I don't know. I don't know who it is. I actually added the glasses after I saw you wearing glasses today.
Yeah, so
it's not supposed to be you. So.
There's a person in the mirror, but the person looking into the mirror has a screen for a face and a cord plugged into their back, and I like that it's basically saying, "Hey, is that me, or is there a difference?"
Where is
I love that.
What is fake life?
Yeah, I love that the person who we're supposed to see in the real world is a robot, because I'm really robot identified anyway. So I feel like this speaks to me a lot. And then I'm looking in the mirror and I'm like, who's that guy? Like, I'm the cool entity with a screen for a face.
Right.
So screw that guy with the glasses.
That is.
Kind of looks like Ayaz.
A little bit, yeah, a little bit like Ayaz. Yeah. So anyway, you can get this right now if you can actually download the digital version right now from my store, lenperaltastore.com, and mentioning things about the holidays, like Jerry did. All kinds of great things on my online store. It's a good time to get on if you want to get a custom drawn holiday card for me. Those are right on the front page. Still have time to do that, and all kinds of other really cool stuff. So I'll check it out over at lenperaltastore.com.
Thank you to every single person who supports us on Patreon, especially if you're keeping your patronage going during the holiday season. You guys are the best. Patreon.com/DTNS. And don't forget, they have some of the most comfortable hoodie I've ever worn is available through the Frog Pants stores. We have a Daily Tech News Show version at dailytechnewsshow.com/store, but look at any of the stores of the Frog Pants shows. They're crazy comfortable and would make a fine gift this holiday season as well. Mm-hmm. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. We're live Monday through Friday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, alphageekradio.com and diamondclub.tv. And our website is dailytechnewsshow.com. Back on Monday with Veronica Belmont. Talk to you then.
This podcast is part of the Frog Pants Studios Network. For more information about this and other shows, visit frogpants.com. Audio program so good, it's like you're there.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Boom.
Woo-hoo. Great show.
Hey, that was fun, you guys.
Oh, thanks, Annalee. That was fun.
Yeah. I'm still sad about Magic Leap. I don't know why.
No, you have no idea. I have like this. Like I'm personally invested because it's literally like 3 blocks from where I went to high school.
And I have 2 friends who work there, and I'm always trying to pump them for information, and they always just kind of cry a little bit. So.
Now I understand. That's very sad. Yeah.
It is a little sad. I didn't want to like bring it up on the show.
Here's the problem with Magic Leap, and we'll see exactly how much in trouble they are in terms of getting their tech working, right? Like that's eventually going to come out because people are going to start talking, especially if there's blood in the water.
Yeah.
But their problem was that they also just wanted the glory too. Like they wanted those big fawning, this is the next new thing, kind of articles. And it's like, you craft those, you bring people in and you allow them access and you show them a demo because you want them to write what they wrote. And you can only go to that well so often without shipping something. Having something,
and without having like a whole bunch of people look at it. I mean, they've had just a few. I feel like there was only one person who went and wrote a giant thing for like, was it the Times or?
There were 2. Yeah. One was for the Times, and then there was another one I think for, it was like another magazine. It was like a Fortune or Fast Company or something like that.
Yeah, and it was like you said, it was just people being like, "Oh my God, it's the future," and it's like, yeah, but you still had to stick your head in like a giant bucket of wires. I mean, it wasn't, that futuristic.
And you always got the sense in those articles that there was other stuff that they were either being told or saw that they couldn't report on, and that was the condition, is that we'll show you this and we'll show you all these things and we'll run you through the demo that got us billions of dollars or over $1 billion in funding. But you can't report on this and you can't report on these other, like, oh, but here's where it really takes off. You can't say that except to say that you saw stuff that you can't talk about. And it's like that ultimately, I think, really hamstrung Magic Leap. Now we're going to find out whether or not
I hope we find out in the next year. I don't know how much longer does their funding last? For like a couple of years or something, or what? I don't know.
Who knows?
Yeah, yes.
Well, I look forward to it.
They're in a fairly cheap area.
Show titles?
I think I'm going to go with I Can't Drive Level 5.
Yeah.
But if you want to share some others.
Well, following that is The Flames in Spain Stay Mainly on the Galaxy Note 7 on the Plane. There's GLaDOS's Christmas album. Magic Leap of Faith. I'm Dreaming of a Bite Christmas. Vanilla Internet. Open the Presents, Hal. Vanilla Skynet. Michigan Drives Driverless Legislation. Mario's Just Want to Have Fun. Samsung is shifting bricks. They're doing something with bricks and it's not shifting. Is this online life? Is this online life?
Like, is this real life? Okay.
Oh.
Whoa.
Magic Leap, are we there yet? Our lives are broadbanded together.
That was pretty good.
Nice.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, I can't. I don't know what to pick. Part of it is I've only had like 16 hours of sleep over 4 or 5 nights.
Not at once. 16 hours sounds like a lot until you.
I was like, yeah, that seems good. I wish I'd had that.
And then if you break it over 5 nights, it's like, oh, maybe not so much.
Then it doesn't sound like as much. Yeah, I guess we'll go with I Can't Drive Level 5 because there's so many good ones, and it's the one leading in the votes.
That's a good one.
TV, so.
I gotta log off. What time is it on Sunday? What time is the show?
The show that we're totally not recording ahead of time for the holidays.
Yeah, we're not doing it. Right.
It is at 9 a.m. Pacific, so noon Eastern.
Okay.
That's predictions results, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's another one in 2 days, which will be for
which again we're
prognostication.
We're totally not doing that though.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
That's on Monday.
That's Tuesday.
No,
it's not happening on Tuesday.
The actual predictions is on Tuesday.
All right.
Tuesday afternoon and Sunday. Those are the 2 days you must be around.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna let you guys make these important decisions.
Yes, thank you, Annalee.
Yeah, if you're ever back down in LA, let me know.
All right, I will. Bye now, you guys.
Thanks
Bye.
again, Annalee.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. Then I will do my best. I'll be here for Sunday. Do my best I can. I'll do the best.
Cool. All right, guys. I'm out.
All right, Justin. Happy
Bye.
Christmas.
See you later. Bye.
Haters. Bye.
Goodbye. Will all the Lens leave now? Or no, they won't.
Len has left the room, but not the Lens.
See, and if I eject, it bans the person. I think just for the session, but I don't want to get rid of them. Just
You know, it just it's going to close out when you close the feed.
yeah. I hid them from the broadcast, so I don't think anybody could see them anyway. Boy, the levelator's having a problem with the Christmas song, I think, because it got hung at 38% for quite a while. Now it's
As it goes,
what the heck is that? I don't know what to do with that. Oh, we have Ben Johnson next week. I forgot.
Ben Johnson. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I remember him. I booked him.
You booked him. Roger, it's very good to have you back. People missed you, including myself.
Oh man, I was doing last minute boxing. I woke up. When did we go? I woke up Monday at 5 to get to Home Depot at 6 when they opened to get a bunch more boxes. And then I was still boxing stuff while they were moving. It's like
Yeah. I was doing that too. When we moved down here, I was like finding things that they weren't going to take and trying to find room for them in my car. And
well, I was just like throwing crap in boxes at that point. It's like, this has to go. This has to go.
I was still coming up once a month. We had our place for another 3 weeks after we moved. I think it was the way it worked out. It was empty. And so I was coming up for taping Sword and Laser at the time. So I came up and I was able to get a few more. I was able to leave a few things, but still.
That's a pain. I got a bunch of I bought so many boxes. I think about like 36, 40 on top of the 25 tubs I bought.
Yeah.
Oh, I spent so much money. It's not even a lot of money. It's just like my hands are dry.
Oh yeah,
from
I had that happen when I moved too, because you handle boxes for so long,
and it just sucks the moisture, and then the tape doesn't help.
They say you should wear rubber gloves, and I was like, that's ridiculous. And now I'm like, next time I do this, I might wear rubber.
No, I'm
gloves.
not doing this again.
Yeah. Never.
If I move, I'm gonna donate my comics to a library or something like for posterity's sake, and then my yearbooks I'll keep. I have a bunch of art books. I don't know what I'm gonna do with those. Oh, I just have so much stuff. That's the problem with getting old. You accumulate stuff, whether you think you have or not.
Just end up with all the things.
I still have all my badges from all the CESs, Comdexes, Comic-Cons.
That's the kind of stuff where I'm like, it's cool to have sometimes, but then really why? Because I do the same thing. I'm not criticizing you. I'm like, I have a big tub full of them too. But then do I really need to do that?
You know what it is? If I have a picture of it, like when cell phone cameras were just standard and you could upload it directly to Google or whatever app you use, that's no longer an issue because now I can just keep it online. Because really, that's what it means to me is that period of time that I won't get back, but I can't really reminisce about because I don't have convenient photos or anything.
Yeah, but if you forget about it, you don't know you forgot about it.
It's true, Tom.
I totally with you. Like, there's that rush of going back and looking at something that you haven't looked at in a long time and bringing back all the memories. I get it. Totally get it.
What they need is to call those online storage like memory overflow stacks.
You should hold everything in your house in your hand, and if it doesn't bring you joy, get rid of it.
I can't hold my wife in my hand.
I knew you were going to go there. Don't do that.
I can't hold my wife in my hand. She's too big.
Stop it.
I need both hands. Even my my kid's, she's getting big. You'll see Sunday. You'll see.
I know. I can't wait.
Yeah, you'll see what a bunch of boxes at the house looks like. It's so weird because we got my dad's dining table, and 2 of the end seats have the armchair rests on them. And so this morning, Jen's eating breakfast at the end of it, and there's a bunch of crap all over in the dining room. It's just kind of weird. It's like watching someone eat breakfast over their fallen, ruined empire, but still, like, it's still enough of the trappings of privilege.
Yeah,
that make the contrast even more stark.
That's why I asked you. The first thing I asked you was like whether you set the bed up, because what we usually do. See, I usually make sure there's sheets available. Like I keep sheets in a place where I know where to get to them, and so then I throw those on the mattress. But we always sleep on the floor for the first couple nights after a move because I don't want to put the bed together, as I'm too tired.
They see. I don't have a fancy bed frame or a bed.
Well, the fancy bed frames are the ones you don't have to assemble.
Yeah. So I just have the standard, universal thing that you put the box spring on.
Mm-hmm.
And that was already set up. The only thing I was missing was the fitted sheets, but I found the box. So what I did was I took all those things that morning. I didn't even wash them. I just folded them into a square and put them in a space bag.
Smart.
I bought a lot of, that's the other thing. I bought like a lot of space bags. They suck for long-term holding because they eventually leak. But for moving, they're great. I just have to be careful that Ellie doesn't get stuck in one or something.
Yeah. All right, folks. Thanks for watching. Show will be online shortly, and we will be back on Monday for more hilarious hijinks.